Well, here we are again, Victoria. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. So excited to be here and to launch this
I know. So we're going to be talking
officially.
about self-esteem, which I think is
Yes.
super important.
Yes, absolutely. I can't wait to get into it and start to really just bring our experience and how we've evolved and build upon our self-esteem for
Yeah.
us to be sitting here today together. So
Yeah. We come from the recovery world where, so one of the things that we were talking about is like how to build self-esteem after addiction, heartbreak, and trauma.
yeah,
Right. So that's kind of what was the impetus of this. Like self-esteem is so important. Our self-esteem sort of determines, how we move through life. So I think we were going to start with defining some terms.
yeah. So I have a question for you. What does self-esteem mean to you?
So, for me, self-esteem is really how we think about ourselves, our beliefs about who we are, what we're capable of, and what we deserve in this life. And it's so funny because if you get right down to it, it's about identity, right? Like
100%. Yeah.
answering the question, who am I? What do I want? How do I want to spend my time? And the answers to those really important questions are largely based on, our self-esteem. Like, what do we feel like we deserve in life? And I like to give this example. It's like if you look around the room that you're sitting in and look at the clothes you pick, how you wear your hair, we're actually living in the residual of all of yesterday's decisions, right?
Yeah.
Our current reality is based on all of yesterday's decisions. And if you think about like what is the quality of what is the quality of your relationships? Do you prioritize yourself over work or other relationships? It's like where does all that land? So in my mind, the quality of your self-esteem really determines the quality of your life. And that's really why I think it's so important.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree with you. And then the level of capability that we bring to it, I think is a factor as well. Am I capable of achieving what I can foresee in the future? And I think that how you view yourself is largely impacted by that. Like, can I do
Yeah.
this?
Yeah. What do you feel has impacted your self-esteem most in your life?
Oh wow. Um, It's been an evolution, really. So, I have a date that I can reflect back to. Some of the individuals, the listeners here today might not have it, but my starting date was when I decided, okay, I was going to put down the substance and really take a hard look at myself because my self-esteem was at an all-time low. So that was 19 years ago.
Mm.
Uh, so many things have impacted my self-esteem from the moment that I've gotten into recovery where to evolving into intense trauma therapy to having in-depth conversations. I think anything that's going to mirror back to you who you are is a tool that will allow you to see the beauty in you, because
Yeah.
I think cognitively we are so wired to be hypercritical of ourselves. I think there's this saying, and I can't, maybe you can reference this, but I know I'm going to butcher it. But there's been a study that we think maybe 3 times more negatively or 5 times more
Oh, I know what you're talking
negatively
about. The
than
National Science Institute put out that study that we have like 30,000 to 80,000 thoughts per day, and like 90% of them are negative,
right.
and and they're the same thoughts that we had the day before. So it's like
Absolutely.
we're always
Right. So
thinking
that,
about the
like, how
same
do
things.
exactly 100%. So how do you or how do I change the narrative in our mind?
Ah,
And I
that's the ticket.
yeah,
That's what us seekers. So that's the whole point of this podcast is what is the information? What is that we need to help change our minds and our thinking? And then
mhm,
how do we actually apply it to our lives? I think that's kind of the whole purpose. We're gonna talk about some strategies to improve self-esteem. We're going to talk about some of the, we're going to do some action items too at the
Yeah,
end. And then
absolutely.
we'll track them with SMART goals, and then we'll report back on the next call.
Yeah, absolutely. And we want to hear from the audience too.
Yes.
So accountability is such a great way to having an accountability buddy. Mine is going to be Arlena. Who's yours
Yeah.
going to be? Find an
Yes.
accountability buddy that you can connect with, that can, you can bounce ideas off of. What did you do here? Your wins, talk about them. Really important. And which leads me
Yeah.
to, my next question, Arlena, why is it important? Why is self-esteem important?
I mean, I think it kind of goes back to what we were talking about, that it determines the quality of your life. And most people, I think it's so normal to want to evolve. And we're not talking about, beating ourselves up with perfectionism or anything like that. We're not trying to like embody like our future best self. We're trying to put into action, things that we can do today to love ourselves exactly as we are. Right. The good parts and the bad parts. I had a mentor ask me one time, she kind of threw down the gauntlet when she said, can you love your unlovable parts?
Mm.
And I was like, wow, because, that's kind of speaks to shadow work, right? We have,
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad you brought this up. Absolutely. And that's so powerful, right?
yeah,
Because I feel like society tells us that you need to be, morally righteous and you can only be this way. And a lot of people hide their shadows. But in
yeah,
reality, if you dive into what shadow work is, then you learn that the duality of life, right?
yeah,
And with duality, we couldn't experience joy without pain, right? Or
right.
sadness. We
Just the
have to have
contrast.
exactly. There has to
Yeah.
be that polarity that we experience in life to experience the light, the good.
Yeah,
So,
the darkness does make you appreciate the light, but and the shadow work in my mind was like, I noticed that I would self-sabotage, right? And I'd be
mm,
like, I know what to do, like be getting close to like a weight goal or a fitness goal or something like that, or a financial goal or something. And I would sabotage and then start to revert back. And in my mind, in neuroscience terms, they talk about the default mode network. And default mode network speaks to your brain's operating system, right? It's and it also speaks to this idea of we sort of live within like a thermostat. Like we don't get too high, we don't get too low. We kind of live in this comfort zone, let's say. And that's sort of your default mode, right?
mhm,
We kind of get into these habits, and some of these habits seem like they're negative. But if you look at when we talk about shadow work, it's like, what are the mechanisms that keep you safe? Like your shadow side always has a benefit. Like if I'm on this diet and I decide to splurge and eat a bunch of ice cream at night just before and I start this habit, it's like, well, my brain is designed to survive. And the
right,
best predictor of survival is past behavior. And so it's a weird sort of mechanism where like we are progressing out of our comfort zone,
right,
and we do these things to self-sabotage because it brings us back down to it's that saying about, I self-sabotage because it's the place where I feel safe.
right.
I'm not saying it right.
Yeah, there's this term homeostasis. So the
Yeah.
homeostasis of where we are, what feels good, what feels anything that we push against, that is going to make us feel uncomfortable. Take, for instance, public speaking, right? For you comes natural, right? It's you
Don't put a
shine.
microphone in front of me.
But for some other people, like they start to sweat and convulse until it becomes
Yeah.
their new
Yeah.
homeostasis. Like it's
Yeah.
incorporated in who they are as an individual because they've done it so many times. So it really is repetition
Yeah.
and incorporating this new way and making
Right.
space for it too. When you want to incorporate something new, you have to be intentional with your time and a practice or a tool.
Practice. Yeah. Gosh,
And
did you read the James Clear book, Atomic Habits?
I have not. I've heard
Oh my
about it.
gosh. I
Yeah.
highly recommend it. One of the things he talks about when changing habits is to start the process of beginning the habit. Like if you want to work out or whatever, you leave your shoes by the door and just practice getting started. So I'm
Right.
like, okay, I'm going to leave my water by the door, my shoes by the door, and then when I get up, everything is right there by the door, and I can just leave.
Yeah.
Right. And that's just the starting. He's like,
That's
master the
awesome.
starting process. I thought that. And so we'll talk about some of that stuff in terms of self-esteem activities that we can do to start rebuilding our self-esteem.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so let's get into what causes like a low and a high of self-esteem. I mean, we said it before. We obviously know that um, it could be the chatter upstairs or, an event that happens, right?
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
heartbreak,
Yeah,
trauma,
yeah,
addiction.
I haven't you heard like we've all seen had a girlfriend go through a breakup or a friend go through a divorce or something, and by the end of it their self-esteem is so low, right? Because it's like we
Right.
have this idea of who we're supposed to be, and things like addiction, the end of a relationship, a failure in business.
Right.
Those are things that can be really damaging to self-esteem because we are tying our worth to something external,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right?
There's
And so,
attachment, right?
yeah, there's that attachment. And so, in my mind, if we can sort of refocus and pivot, and they call it like the locus of control, when our identity is attached to something that's outside of ourselves, then it's at the peril of events, right? You don't have control over it.
Right.
Whereas if we're talking about self-validation and our value system being based on internal qualities like kindness and respect, and what are some other ones, having a moral compass, being of service, things like that. Those are
Right.
all internal qualities that we can then build our internal validation system based, and that's something that's an internal locus of control. So we kind of just maintain that within ourselves instead of basing things on the outside of ourselves, like relationships, or falling to addiction, or a business that fails or something like that.
Yeah, because it goes along the lines of like, okay, if I have this, it's going to make me feel better. Now,
Mhm.
is that the reality for me? No. I realized that anything outside of myself was going to be a temporary like dopamine rush, whatever the case might be, but to project outward to fill something inward never worked, whether it be
Right.
alcohol or whatever it is,
A
or
relationship.
relationships, or if I get that car or if I get that
Oh
house.
yeah.
I remember achieving things as I was growing up, and that felt really good, and goals are great, but how
Yeah.
do you sustain the goodness that you found within yourself to go and achieve it? It wasn't the
Yeah.
thing, right? It wasn't the
Right.
object. It's not. So it's like, how do you maintain that energy of really, completing any goal? Like, what was your thought process? Uh,
Yeah. I think something to note here is the effort that we put in. Like working hard is the win, right? Like taking action is the win, right?
yes.
It's like we take action, like do the work and leave the results up to God, kind of a thing, right? We let go of
100%.
outcomes, right? And of course, we can analyze and tweak our behavior so that we can find something that works. But really, so I think we're going to talk about three strategies, and celebrating the wins is definitely one of them.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Do you want to get into them?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Okay. So, one, we've defined as self-care, naming three things. So, what are yours?
Okay, so so we were talking about doing the things that rebuild self-esteem or build self-esteem, are self-care, being of service, and celebrating the wins. Those were the kind of the three things that we were going to talk about. And then in terms of self-care, and this is where we get into action, right? So a morning self-care routine is hugely important to me. And there's so many things that we can do for self-care. Like I call this the self-care smorgasbord. Like there's so many things that we could do, right? So
Yeah.
we're just going to identify 3 things that we can do within like a reasonable amount of time, because you could spend all morning.
Oh,
Um,
100%.
so for me, my self-care practice includes exercise, a short meditation, and a gratitude list. And I cheat and I use the 5-minute journal. I'll leave a link to it in the show notes. It's an
Yeah,
amazing.
it's actually great. And it does make you feel good because you are completing it. It takes 5 minutes. So
Yeah.
it's a win-win. So
Well, some
yeah.
of us it takes a little longer because I'm like my brain is very like ADD, so it might take me a little longer,
Well,
but
squirrel,
yeah,
squirrel or hummingbirds, whatever it might be.
yeah, hummingbirds for me. Um, yeah, so the 5-minute journal is awesome because it's 3 things that you're grateful for, 3 things that would make the day great, and an affirmation. So I do that in the morning, and then I'm in my yoga girl era. So
I love that for you so much. I really do.
yeah,
You've been killing it too.
I've been doing hot yoga almost every day. Wednesdays twice a day. So
I think,
nutty.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna look at
How
my
good do you feel?
oh my God, I feel
I
so good.
know.
Yeah,
I know.
it's so funny because we always talk about how exercise is the best antidepressant on the planet. It is the gospel truth. It is
It
so true.
really is. It really is. I've never heard somebody
A
regret.
workout, yeah.
Yeah. Nobody.
God damn it, I'm so
I'm
mad I
so
didn't go
mad
work
that I
out.
went to the gym today. No, you end up feeling like $1 million when you leave. You feel pumped and motivated, and just that exercise high that we got, right? So
Yeah, yeah. So my self-care routine in the morning will be, I'm going to commit. So this will be part of my SMART goals that we'll talk about. A SMART goal is specific, measurable, actionable, reasonable, and time bound.
yes,
So I'll bring in the morning and I'll do a short meditation. I'm going to do the Rock rain meditation. It's 11 minutes of green skins. And it's a great way of processing a negative emotions in the morning, because we don't want to spiritual bypass or our negative feelings, right? And so the RAIN meditation stands for recognize, allow, investigate, and nurture. And I'll leave a link in the show notes for the RAIN meditation, but it's very short and very effective. And just doing like a body scan, where are you feeling sad? What she says, where are you at war with yourself?
oh man,
Isn't that
that
good?
that's really powerful. Yeah, I'm
Where
gonna
are
write
you at
that down.
war?
Yeah,
And this is a meditation of compassion. And so where can we bring compassion to ourselves? But I love how she like recognizes, oh, I have this feeling of this is where I'm at war with myself. And then allow is just like giving it some space, and allowing it I'm like, what does that even mean? She's like, just say it out loud. Oh, anger, there's sadness, there's grief. And sometimes she'll go, oh, sadness, there's sadness. And just by naming it, validates it. That's allowing it to have space. And then the investigation, I'm always a little confused about the investigation. But I think as when I'm in it, when I'm doing her guided meditation, she talks about it. So it's kind of a seamless process. But it's like, anyway, I am confused about that. So I need to do it again. I haven't done it for a little while.
well, this is a
But
great opportunity now.
I know, I'm like, well, this is a reason.
Yeah,
And then the nurture is, how can I be kinder to myself? Where can I
that's
bring
so
love and
important.
compassion? Yeah.
I don't think people talk about that enough. Like, how do you talk to
Mm-mm.
yourself? Are you
Oh,
consciously speaking to yourself? Because there is this part of me where there's the unconscious part where it just goes, right? It's
it just
nonstop.
goes.
And
Yeah.
then I literally have to like stop myself and be like, whoa, slow,
Yeah.
bring it back.
You're like,
Let's
"Wow."
let's send some love to that shadow part of ours, and
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
really just, pivot, how I look at something,
Gosh,
how
I'm
I
so
see
glad
something. Or because I mean, really, whenever, I project outwards, like I can get victimized by anything, right? The guy on the road, the guy on the road, whatever it might be. It's like, all right, let me just slow down. So I really am interested. Can't wait for you to send it to me because I'm going to try
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. It's one of my, I recommend it to everybody. It's Tara Brock. She is an amazing meditation teacher. She's like a psychotherapist and a Buddhist. And I mean, this woman would go on like a 3 month, she would go on retreats that were 3 months long. But she's just so kind and loving, and everything about her just exudes compassion. She wrote Radical Acceptance and Radical Compassion. I would highly recommend both. It's so funny because like if sometimes I have sleeping problems and I'll keep my headphones by my bedside. And if I wake up at like 4 a.m, sometimes I'll just listen to her audiobook, and her voice is so soothing and compassionate. Like it helps me calm down, like it soothes my anxiety and I can go back to sleep.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So,
No, I'm super intrigued now. I'm going to have to check her
okay.
out.
So are you going to do that too? Is that your action item? Are you going to do the Tara Brach meditation too?
Oh, I will totally do that.
Do you
I'm
think
going
you
to,
could do it 3 times this week from now to next time?
yeah. How long are meditations typically?
Oh, well, hers is 11 minutes and 31 seconds.
Oh, that's more than it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Make time for
Even,
that. Yeah.
yeah. Even if you do it like as you go to sleep at night, like any action is a win. And we're going to be talking about celebrating the wins too.
Absolutely.
Can we
Yeah.
talk about willingness calls?
Oh, please get into that because God, I love the way that number one that you phrased this.
Yeah,
And I think that it's so important in two pieces. Number one, having that service component
it's
and
a
reaching
service. Yeah.
out,
Yeah.
getting out of yourself, right? But also that connection piece.
Yeah.
We as human beings, we need that connection.
Yeah,
Need
we do.
it. We
Yeah.
really do.
I've heard that, have you heard that addiction is a disease of isolation and connection is a cure?
I have heard that before. Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
And
I
it's
think that's
so
like a
true.
Gabor Mate
I
quote.
think it's so true. You just find the people that you connect with and people that inspire you. And I feel like you can flourish
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
the person that you
You
want
know,
to become.
I think service is one of the three strategies that we're talking about today, largely because it's hard to look into the eyes of gratitude and feel like a piece of shit.
Right.
If you're being in service of somebody, and it was so interesting on the Andrew Huberman Huberman
Yeah.
Lab podcast,
Yeah.
my neuroscience crush, he was talking about gratitude in the sense of receiving gratitude. And I feel like that I was like, wow, that I know I had never heard it articulated that way. But it's true. It's like if you help somebody else out, or you go to like a soup kitchen or a whatever it is, whatever service you do, and people say thank you, it makes you feel good about yourself. Like you're taking action. It's like mood follows action.
Yeah. The gift
That's,
isn't giving.
yeah.
You've heard that, I'm sure.
Yeah. Giving is
It's
better
so
than
true.
receiving.
I mean, yeah, I can think of plenty of times where you've purchased a present for somebody and you're
Yes.
so excited to give them the
Yeah.
present. Like it's the thought, it's the energy, it's the excitement, it's all of it. It's all that energy that we put behind it. So even showing up for somebody just
Oh
with a
my
phone
gosh.
call.
Yeah. That's
Hey,
huge.
how are
Yeah.
you?
That's what we're really going to talk about is the willingness calls.
Yeah.
And I started years ago, working with women in 12-step programs. I would ask them to do 3 willingness calls a week. And a willingness call is demonstrating a willingness to like be of service. Right. And so, and this is like the complaint I hear all the time is, oh, I don't want to bother anybody. But if you think about what it feels like to be on the receiving end of a phone call, it's like somebody reaches out and says, hey, I was just thinking about you. Just want to check in on you. How are you doing? It's like, oh, that's so nice. You're just thinking about me. It's like, oh, I feel so loved. That's how it feels on that end. So a willingness call, you 3 phone calls a week. You call somebody, you say, hey, I'm just checking in on you. How are you doing?
Mhm.
And then you give them an opportunity to share. And then you share a little something about yourself. I always like to play the high-low game. It's like, here's the highlight of my day. Here's the low light of the day. Cause there's always, when someone says, how are you? It's like, well, there's always some of each, right? There's
There's so much, right?
always some challenges, but there's
Right.
always a lot of stuff that's working well. So sometimes we just play the high-low game. But so anyway, you just have like this little check-in, right? And you have do this with like maybe 3 people so that when life happens and the shit hits the fan, which it will, you are current with 3 people already, and you don't have to spend a lot of time in the backstory. You can just get right into it. And the interesting thing is that you will already be in the habit of reaching out because you've done it so many times before. And there's this saying that we don't rise to the level of our expectations, we fall to the level of our training.
Absolutely.
So if you're not in the habit of calling when you feel good, it makes it so much harder to call when you feel bad. When you
Absolutely.
feel bad, I think for most of us, we tend to want to isolate,
Yeah, I
right?
mean, it's easy, right? It's
Yeah.
easy to just go with the flow and whatnot, and connection takes time and effort.
Yeah.
Uh, but the payoff is there because there's this emotional intimacy that you build with people, and you get to know them
Yeah.
and their vulnerabilities and their humanness, and what they bring to the table, and that connection could be, it's a gift.
It's a
It's a
gift.
gift that it really is. It
It
really
keeps
is.
on giving.
So yeah,
And you
absolutely.
never know when you call somebody, like what's going on with them. Like I have had so many experiences where I call someone and they're like, oh my God, I'm so glad you called. I'm going through this thing. And they're
Right.
like, oh, tell me. Right. And that's your opportunity to be of service. Right. And then it works the other way around too. Cause not everybody will be like, it takes a minute to build your support system, but there will be times when I'm just like going through it and my brain is hijacked and I don't even remember who I need to call or whatever. It's like, I tend to isolate when I'm upset or whatever. And I'll get a text or a call from somebody, hey, just checking in on you. I'm like, oh my God, thank you so much. I needed to talk. I need to vent about this thing, or I need some feedback or whatever it is. And so it works both ways, right? It's like you start making
Absolutely.
calls and people start calling you back. Not everybody will call you back. So you need to give yourself some time to build your support system. You need to find your people, like keep trying. But
And it is a habit, right? So
yeah.
you can fall into any unconscious routine. For me, mine is always the car. Whenever I have
Mm,
space and time, is like it's always in the car, when it's the quietest place with having 3 kids that I get. So
great point. Yeah. In the
so
car.
for
Yeah.
me, it's like the moment that I get in the car, I know I'm making phone calls to my people, and I reach
Yeah.
out. If they can pick up, great. If not, hey, I love you. I'll talk to you soon.
I
Just
love
check.
it that we have the Marco Polo app and then we chat.
All
I feel
day.
like we chat all day. Like when I have a minute, I'm like, blah, 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 blah. I talk to, and then you can see me and I can see you. I love the Marco Polo app. It's so
I know,
fun.
it's great. It was
Yeah.
such an awesome tool to have for a friendship and getting to know you too. And
Yeah.
it's
It's super
been
fun.
so amazing. Yeah. And it just laughed because some of it, like, we're just like, what was I saying? Squirrel?
I
What?
know.
I'll remember.
Yeah, so mine is in the morning. So like when I get up in the morning, I grab my coffee, I go sit outside with the dog and the hummingbirds. I have all these hummingbird feeders. And that's why I always get distracted because I'll be sending you a Marco Polo and then the birds will fly by and I'm like,
Yeah.
so squirrel for some, hummingbirds for others. So funny.
Iguanas for me. Oh,
Yeah.
an iguana's here.
Yeah, and anyway, that's my time is in the morning, your time is in the car. So everybody finds their time when it's good and convenient to reach out to people. And it's okay to text first. I have a friend who will text me and she'll ask me, "Are you chattable?" I'm like, "Yeah. Yeah, I can chat,
That's so
so that's
cute. I like
okay.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes people don't want to get stuck on long calls. So if you're worried about the person that you're going to call, like you're not sure if they're a long talker, like some people are
Right.
guilty long talker. I'll get a call from a friend. My friend Heidi was always really good. She's like, I only have 10 minutes, but I just wanted to check in. Do you have a minute? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So she'll say her thing, I'll say my thing, and then it's over in 10
Right,
minutes.
exactly. Yeah, just name what you want and what you're there for, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
having that heads up of like, oh, we have 10 minutes, great. Awesome.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
I'm totally on board. Yeah.
Yeah.
With that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. So anyway, that's the willingness call. So I'm going to do I'm not going to count you because I always talk to you anyway. So I'm going to get a little outside my comfort zone and call 3 other people.
Okay. I will match you on
Okay.
that.
I'll match you and raise you 2 calls.
Yeah.
3 is fine. Okay, so we're doing 3 things in the morning for the self-care, 3 people for the willingness calls.
Yep. And then lastly is celebrating wins.
Ooh, tell me why that's so important.
Yeah. So celebrating wins is important is to give yourself the space and acknowledgement for accomplishing what you want to accomplish, right? So it's so important. I know I am totally guilty of not, I'm super critical sometimes with myself, super hard.
We're
So
changing that.
we are changing that
I used
today.
to be
So
critical of myself.
I used to. So it's all about the language, right? We were just talking about energy with
Yeah.
the words that you choose. So I am going to be celebrating my wins nightly. I do well with reflections at the end of the night.
Okay.
So for me, that's the time that it works. What about
Okay,
yourself?
so you're gonna do, are you gonna use your 5-minute journal for that?
Yeah. So just to get into that, maybe we should just kind of get into the 5-minute journal, why it's so
Yeah.
have a morning reflection and then a nightly reflection. So within the book. And so it literally, you can set intentions for the morning, and at night you just review what your day looked like. So
Yeah.
if you're interested, like Arlena said, she'll post a link to get that 5-minute journal.
If you're
There it
watching,
is.
yeah, if you're listening to the podcast, just know that we're going to be publishing the YouTube videos, and I'm holding up the book. It says a 5-minute journal on the outside. It's very nice. It's not cheap, by the way. I think it's like $40.
Yeah, it
I
is.
don't
It was
care.
really
But you know
expensive.
what? I would spend $40 on sushi. I would a meal
Right.
that leaves me the next day, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
A pair of shoes. It's like, this is something.
Lipstick.
Oh my God, do you spend $40 on lipstick?
People do. I don't.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
My daughter will at this point because she's bougie. Like I'm like, I gotta reel her in,
live within your means.
Yeah,
Well,
living.
listen, she's not paying rent, so she can
Just-
afford $40 lipstick at this point.
maybe these middle school girls.
Isn't that
Some
funny?
of the things, yeah. Some of the things
Come
are
on.
into. I'm like, that is $30 for a highlighter. No.
Like makeup highlighter, like cheek
Yeah,
highlighter.
like makeup. She's like all the middle school girls are into makeup right now.
Oh my
All
gosh. Okay.
have a-
I'm gonna have to go off on a little tangent because so on TikTok, I've started following these makeup influencers. They are so much fun to watch. But can I
So
tell you, it makes me want to buy all the makeup.
Yeah, which is why my daughter has more makeup than I do now. That is her thing right now. And she knows more about it than I do. Like she's literally teaching me about skincare. She's like, Mom, those are pore clogging ingredients, Mom. You cannot have that. And I was like, wait a minute, what? She's like, I checked online. You can't get that.
Okay, listen.
Totally
So
schooling me.
we
So
we need
anyway.
we need her in our lives because like I'm 54, you're not. You're much younger than I am. But I was like, oh my gosh, thank God for these people, these young women who are coming up with these new techniques and new ways of wearing makeup that make you look so much better.
Oh, it makes
Oh
you
my
like
gosh, the contouring and all that. Okay, this is gonna be boring for the boys. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
All right, but anyway, okay, so the 5-minute journal. So get it. I'll leave a link in the show notes. And if not, there's even if you just followed the format in a notebook, which is 3 things that you're grateful for in the morning, 3 things that would make today great, and that night is 3 wins of the day, basically.
Absolutely. I would just want to note that it's super important to be conscious when you are celebrating your wins. This is it's not meant to be like a checkbox or like, I did it. It's like really leaning in to heart-centered,
Yeah.
feel
it.
To feel it with your whole heart. Like, oh my God, I am so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. So to really feel it within your being of like, wow, I accomplished something today and I feel really good about it and I feel really proud, and to really see yourself for it.
That I am so glad you said that. That is the yes. If any of this starts to become rote and you're not feeling it, then you need to just switch it up. Right. So gratitude list. I recommend 3 different things every day so that you're not grateful for my husband, grateful for my health, grateful for, you know what I mean? It's like, it's easy to just, it doesn't mean anything anymore.
Right.
if you're not if you're not truly connecting to it, it's like, oh, I had that experience with somebody and they expressed gratitude towards me. Like, oh, that feels allowing ourselves to receive that.
Mhm.
Um, and I was alluding to the self-care smorgasbord early because there's so many different things. And it's important to, like, I'll do the 5-minute journal for a while and then it stops feeling meaningful to me. So I just rotate something else in.
Right. Yeah,
There's
and that's
there's so
okay.
many things.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what do you, this isn't about like being so rigid
Rigid.
where it's
No.
habitual and I have to do it. Like this is not
Yeah.
the purpose of that. The purpose of this is like, all right, how do you connect to yourself and really truly see your beauty, and your light?
Yeah, and that actually kind of brings me to this idea of the carrot and the stick. Those are the two motivators, either towards, goals that pull you towards them, and then things, like the stick, it's like, what will it cost you? So when I teach a self-esteem class, and in the first class, why are you doing this? Like, what is your why? It's like, well, at the end of the day, like we do this exercise, and at the end of the day, we all are seeking peace, right?
Right.
Like if I am a certain weight, then I'll feel good about myself and then I'll have peace. Or if I have a certain dollar amount in the bank, then I'll feel secure and then I'll have peace. Or the relationship, then I'll feel loved and then I'll have peace. It's like all roads lead to the same thing.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's like peace and joy and contentment and fulfillment. And so celebrating the wins is allowing ourselves to feel those things, like identify what you want to feel and allowing yourself to feel that.
And it's so interesting because it really is, it could be, the perception could be, it's like such an illusion that it's outside of ourselves. It's what are we cultivating within
Yeah.
ourselves?
Yeah.
Because it
It's
really
all
is
within.
that. It's like, all right, how do I tune in instead of like arriving at this place of peace? No, there is
Yeah.
peace to be had.
Right
It's
now.
just, are you tuning into it is the question.
Yeah.
We constantly think that we have to chase things when,
Ugh.
somebody said this to me a long
Like
time
a
ago.
seeker,
What's that?
like a
Yeah, like a
seeker.
seeker, right? Yeah, like a seeker. We're always looking,
Yeah.
and maybe we're just learners, maybe we just want
Yeah.
to learn, what works, but constantly evolving.
Yeah.
Truly am a seeker. But somebody said this to me a long time ago, and I just want to be happy. I just want to be happy. Like it was a
Mm,
destination.
mm,
And happiness is just joyful moments that have accumulated over time. That's what
yeah.
happiness is, right?
Yeah.
So how are you finding joy in the moment is the question.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what are
Joy
you
is
looking
available.
for? Because it's there. Yeah, it is
Yeah.
there.
We tend to put an obstacle between us and peace and happiness. If I get to that weight, then I'll be happy. If I get to that dollar amount in the bank, then I'll be happy. If I have that relationship, then I'll be happy. If I have that business, then I'll be happy. But the idea is that we don't actually, like, whose rule is that? Who
Yeah,
gets to make up your rules?
right.
You do,
Yeah,
right? And so we could actually choose to have peace and happiness and all the feelings that we want right now just by changing our focus. So this is all about setting ourselves up to win.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And diving into it. So, well,
So do you feel like we have our three? So we have our SMART goals, right? So specific, we have three specific goals for self-care, service, and celebrating the wins, right?
mm-hmm.
That's specific. Measurable, I think we covered those as well. 3 days a week, three people. I think I'll be able to do my 5-minute journal, celebrate my wins every night. I'm just going to leave my journal next to my bed. So before I go to sleep, I'll just jot them down.
Yeah, that's nightly.
That's nice. So that covers the time. And I think these are reasonable. Don't you think they're reasonable?
I think they
Actionable,
are.
reasonable? All
Yeah,
right.
100%. Yeah.
Okay, so the next time we do an episode, we'll check in. So this is going to be the format of the podcast is we'll start the podcast with what was the topic. We'll cover like as a reminder, like what was the topic from last week? What were the SMART goals? Did you take action? If yes, what actions did you take? What were the results? Like what were the feelings or the outcomes? And if you didn't take action, if no, what got in the way?
Yeah.
Because if we can decide what gets in the way, then we can develop a plan. We can kind of strategize around what got in the way and think of something else.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Pivot.
Did you see
Love that word.
episode? Did you see that Friends episode? They were doing the pivot.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it was hilarious.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Yeah, this
Well,
was awesome.
that feels complete to me. Was there anything else that you wanted to add?
No, that's it. I'm excited to work on this, and we will circle back.
So you also mentioned we want to hear from you. So you mentioned the email address that we have. So we have an email address, selfhelpjunkiepodcast@gmail.com. So if you want to play along and you need some accountability, send us an email. We will read every single email that comes in, and we could maybe share some of the things on the podcast. It'd be really interesting to hear what got in the way, or what outcomes you got as well.
Yeah, I'd love to hear what you're working on.
Yay. All right,
Awesome.
my friend. Thank
All
you so
right.
much. Thank you for
you.
being my favorite seeker.
Oh, of course.
I'll talk soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay, bye.